Hi, all. Happy Monday. I'm actually going to touch on something that happened on Friday because people are freaking out about stuff, and they've been freaking out all weekend as of this recording. And I'm. Let me know if you guys want me to talk about Stadia, the Google streaming service. I talked about it a bit on Twitch stream. Tomorrow, regular time, resumes. But let me know, because this other thing came up, and it's once again the yearly performative ritual that is the Game Developers Choice Awards at GDC. And I was very happy to see God of War get an award after all the crap that game took pre-launch, but it seems like certain people in gaming have not learned their lesson. It seems to be like clockwork every year. People like Tim Schafer and also Tim Schafer get up there and grandstand. And it's ostensibly about other people and what a wonderful, supportive male overlord he is. But it's really not. It's about self-aggrandizing, which is why I got cheeky and jokingly referred to him as a male overlord. Because that's what this kind of behavior does. When a guy like Tim Schafer, who could just ostensibly get by just making games people want to play, Psychonauts and so on, he gets up there and he says things to make a point. Everything about his language, everything about his choice of vehicle, it's all about, look what a great person I am, unless there's some element of this is what people now think they have to do in gaming to get work. I don't think that that's the case with Tim Schafer, because he self-funds and crowdfunds most of his stuff, though perhaps he's beyond that, because that went a little iffy for him. But it's interesting because this, to me, pulls all these philosophical things that, so-called feminists in gaming pull in the idea of the gaze and gaze theory. And I do really think that the fact that elements of GDC are streamed, they are public, people do put on a performance knowing they're being watched. And if they didn't know they were being watched, they would have carried on in a completely different way. And I actually think that in their attempts to grandstand to show what great people they are actually making the social ills that they claim to oppose worse, because there are best practices regarding issues like the Christchurch mosque shooting, which was the reason for the rending of garments at the Game Developers Choice Awards. And one of the best practices is you put your focus on the grieving families, the lives lost, and spend less time glamorizing and celebritizing the shooter and their worldview. Of course, even though this is best practice, this never freaking happens, really. The first part, yes, they do pay attention to the lives lost. They did a very good job of that in with the mosque shooting in Canada, sadly predating Christchurch. But there's also fascination, this paranoid fixation on the motivations of mass shooters. And I think that's ill-headed. I keep thinking about the banning of The Catcher in the Rye from schools back in the days in the wake of Mark David Chapman, is that his name? The guy who shot John Lennon wanted to shoot Reagan, possibly wanted to shoot David Bowie. It was basically anybody famous. That's not terribly instructive about why he wanted to kill people. Neither is the obsession with fame, nor is the fact that he was reading The Catcher in the Rye when he was arrested. The Catcher in the Rye at no point advocates killing people. Nonetheless, The Catcher in the Rye was banned from schools all over the place because of this shooting. Now, did it stop? Did it prevent any future shootings? Well, clearly not. Clearly these tangible details are, how do I put this? They are distractions from the fact that mass shooters are an anomaly. There are ways that you can minimize the body count in these scenarios, but it is impossible to completely 100% prevent these kind of multi-casualty events. The idea of looking at gun violence and those issues and the issues related to a proliferation of guns in a country, that's much more about the overall gun crime and gun suicide rate than really being able to I think we can get the number down. There has been an uptick of late, and I think that's a complex combination of social factors that I'm not going to get into here. But I really do think that, oh, he watched this TV show, oh, he read this book, oh, he read this video, he played this video game. These are distractions from looking at what is really driving these guys. And that's why you're not supposed to focus on the motivations per se. You're also not supposed to spread the manifesto if they leave anything behind, which of course has been done intentionally or not through the focus on video games and the video game community once again. And at GDC, it looks like 2 people did it. We've got one is no surprise, Tim Schafer. But the other is a woman I'd never heard of before this, and I'm going to go easy on her because Meg Yanth. Probably butchering her name, but I know some of you guys are gonna get mad at me for giving her the benefit of the doubt, but please hear me out. I think that we can be kind to the people we disagree with, but still chastise them for their errors and hope that they will get better. They're more likely to listen to you if you are kind and give them the benefit of the doubt. All of this screaming looks a lot like the stuff that the people who get up on their high horse and pontificate at events claim to want to prevent, and yet they are adding to the heat. They are adding to the invective. We can collectively do better. There are other ways to discuss issues. Now, yes, sometimes emotions get the better of us. That's human. That's not evil. But I think we need to point out the logic faults in some of these tactics, because I'm tired of this community and this industry coming under siege every freaking, mass casualty event, because even though science has again and again and again and again shown that video games don't cause violence, they do not make you violent, they do not instill violent urges that don't pre-exist, we keep getting pulled into this because it is a prolonged, sustained moral panic. And look at these quotes, okay? This is Meg JF. I am not going to... she just happens to be first on this article, but I will get to Tim Schafer. But here we go. She brought up the Gamergate movement, which happened in, 2014, 2015. I wish people would stop talking about that. It's counterproductive at this point. The thing that I actually found amazing about Gamergate is, despite all the freaking out, all the tempers flaring, and all the insanity everywhere, no one got physically hurt as a direct result of Gamergate stuff. There was a lot of bomb threats. There was a lot of mental health crises. And there were some people who did terrible things unrelated to the whole Gamergate controversy, except that they were a part of the Gamergate controversy on one side or another. But no one went out and actually got violent because of Gamergate. And you can't even say that about the controversies in comic books. there are people who've been going out beating people up because of their views. I could be wrong about that. Maybe that story's changed, but it just sort of makes the point, right? That no one did get hurt during Gamergate. No one got physically hurt. People's careers were messed up. People were really scared, but it didn't come to the point of violence. And that is very, very, very important when you sort of put things in perspective of how bad Gamergate was. Now, I will give Meg Jayanth credit. She makes a statement that was misinterpreted in many quarters, but it is factually accurate. I still don't think she should be going back here. So I am going to defend that point of view, but let me read the quote because it's been a lot of ado. Okay. It felt at the time, talking about Gamergate, as though we rejected that campaign of hatred, but it's never actually felt closer to me right now. Oh, good Lord. Hold it together, Leanna. A mutated strain of that poison that made video games its testing ground has bubbled up in Christchurch, New Zealand. It fueled a monster who went to a mosque with murder in his heart, and if we don't utterly and vocally and wholly reject these people, these Nazis and fascists and white supremacists, then we are inviting them in. If we make room for them, then there is no room for anyone else. All right, the thing I'm going to say was actually factually accurate. She didn't flat out say, Gamergate did this. She said that a particular strain of, people get mad at me, but alt-right, for lack of a better term, propagandists did test their message on gamers during that period. They did. That is known. Steve Bannon said as much. So I will give her credit regarding not saying something that was factually accurate there. She's wrong about how we cut down on things like Nazis, fascists, and white supremacists. If you've looked at any of the stuff about how to bring white supremacists back from these hateful attitudes, it isn't by yelling at them. It isn't by shutting them out, because that fuels their sense of, we need a white nationalist paradise so that people like me can be appreciated. What they've found actually helps these people is kindness and making them open to another point of view. Now, if she had focused on the behaviors, people shouldn't be able to spew white nationalist propaganda in multiplayer sessions. Yeah, obviously rules are there for a reason, and it's a good rule that, people didn't jump up and down and scream and yell about not bringing overt beat you over the head politics into games to then get lectured about the superiority of white people while they're trying to play Call of Duty. I think everybody's sort of everybody can kind of agree on both sides, although those factions hate agreeing on anything, that has no place. Because, the Gamergate side would say that politics of any kind really has no place. And then obviously the anti-Gamergate side doesn't like white supremacy. So fine. But she didn't focus on the behavior. She didn't focus on the ideas. She focused on the people. And whenever you reject people, not their ideas, but the people, when you start denying people their humanity, you make divisions worse, you make a sense of hopelessness worse, you fragment the social cohesion that makes people feel like a part of a community, that makes them less likely to go out and do horrible things to people. There is sort of a glue that holds a society together. So if somebody sees somebody as an extension of themselves, they're far less likely to hurt them than if they see them as an other. You study propaganda, you see that over and over and over again. So she's just wrong in her prescription for how to solve this problem, which, is why on this channel, I don't care what someone's views are as long as they behave themselves here. And it always feels humbling to me when somebody sends me a message and they said that they were ready to give up on certain progressive values or certain progressive identifiers until they found my channel, and they're like, okay, this makes sense to me. I don't have to agree 100%. No one demands lockstep. It's almost like at first, you guys know that I was like, why do people have to point out that they don't agree 100%? Nobody agrees 100%. I've come to think of that differently as people, it's like a cathartic thing that they're not allowed to say they don't agree. So it's like this freeing thing to be able to say, especially to a feminist, I don't agree with you 100% and not get excommunicated. Like maybe that's it. I don't know. But there are documentaries out there, and there are papers written, and there is anecdotal and, scientific evidence that shoving someone away, shutting them out, does not change their mind. Ostracization does not work. They run this documentary ad nauseum on weekends on MSNBC of a reformed white supremacist, where he creates basically empathy exercises. And it doesn't work right away, but it gives them another sense. It gives them a sense of other people as people. And that's the first step. And if, we start this, un-American activities committee of any sign of potential wrongthink, you're excommunicated from the group. First of all, that's impossible online. People can just take another account. You don't know it's the same person right away. But it's also just not effective. And we should be, if we're really concerned about this issue, and I know I sound like a total systemized INTJ right here, but that doesn't make it wrong. If we're really concerned about making this better, not just showing that you yourself are a wonderful person, but actually making this better, we have to do the things that work, even though they're a lot harder and a lot more uncomfortable. And here we go. I told you I'd get to Tim Schafer. Here we go. Now, he's apparently sent his love to Muslims worldwide. That's great. I'm sure that, Muslims worldwide give a damn that a game developer likes them. No, they freaking don't. Trust me. But, he says, and humble brag here, I hope this isn't controversial, knowing it's going to be controversial in some quarters, but fuck white supremacists. I think it's sad that racists and other hate peddlers feel safe in any space that's remotely connected to video games, and I think we all have an opportunity in our work, in our daily lives, and in our platforms, big and small, to make it absolutely clear that we do not tolerate any of that crap. Okay, let's break that down. First of all, fuck white supremacists. That's exactly what somebody who is part of a hate movement expects. That fuels them. They come looking for a fight, and when they get that, emphatic pushback, that feeds them. That's what they've been indoctrinated to expect. So every time people go, fuck Nazis, fuck white supremacists, punch this person, kick this person's ass, you are helping sustain the indoctrination of these programs, because they teach these kids that the world hates them, that everyone's against them, the only people you have are like your Aryan brothers, and so every time they get a reaction like that, cements the programming a little bit more. The idea that racists and other hate peddlers define other hate peddlers, no, he didn't, because that's a slippery slope. One could define a hate peddler as anybody who goes up there and go, fuck that entire group of people. That's hate. That's hate. Tim Schafer is on one hand saying, I hate white supremacists, essentially, and then saying, no hate peddlers anywhere in gaming. You can't have it both ways. Either hate is hate, and we oppose hate, or hate's okay as long as you hate the right people. And you can oppose white supremacists. You can disagree with their entire worldview. You can even think that they are causing harm. You don't have to hate them. You don't. You can see them as people and dislike that one part of them, and find something in them to connect on a human level. It's the only way to bring them back. If of course, you're concerned about saving them as a human being and reducing the amount of hate in the world. Just saying, oh, she's saying we should be nice to white supremacists. Well, no, you don't have to be nice to white supremacists, but you can't say you're concerned about reducing the problem and then perpetuate hate of any kind. There is a huge difference with disagreeing with a worldview of, condemning a worldview and hating the person. Huge, huge difference. I mean, supposedly America's this Christian country, but it seems to not grasp this concept, But the idea that hateful people feel safe in, quote, any space that's connected to video games. I'm not really sure that's true. Perhaps it is on an individual basis. It is true that white supremacist movements use any culture or subculture where young white men tend to congregate. That includes heavy metal music. That includes certain forms of hip hop music. That's not saying there's anything wrong with rap or hip or heavy metal. You guys know I love my rap and metal. It's just they're going where the white boys are. So it's important not to make that correlation become a false causation. There's something inherently wrong with gaming so that we attract white supremacists. No, gaming happens to have a lot of white men, and it's easy to figure out, which games are going to have more white men and which games are going to have more sort of a diverse group of people. But that doesn't mean that white supremacists are necessarily safe in gaming. It means they're going in there because it's a target-rich environment in terms of their message, with a lot of not just young white men, but young white disaffected men. And if game developers keep preaching from the bully pulpit of an award show, you're pushing those disaffected young white men who are on the bubble of this stuff into the sarcasm alert loving arms of some sort of white nationalist movement. So again, it might make you feel good to say this, and oh, what a great guy Tim Schafer is. He cements his reputation as one of the good white men that keeps telling us what to do instead of the bad white men that keeps telling us what to do. Sorry, Tim Schafer, nobody tells me what to do. And that doesn't change just because you get up on a stage every year and act like a raging asshole. And the reality is that artists, and I'm a comedian, okay? I just came off a live tour. So I can speak to this. I can speak to what it's like to create and what it's like to go out there and put your work out there and have it judged and have Vice take a crap all over it. But we got the last laugh. You don't know who's in your audience. I mean, Vice made a point of pointing out that, the audience was less diverse than, it was more diverse than I expected, but it was still predominantly white and male, leaving out that it was a heavy metal bar. Remember what I said about metal and white men? Yeah. We don't know who's in the audience. I guarantee you there's plenty of people in the audience with ideas that I don't agree with. I can't change that as a creator. All I can do is set an example and put stuff into the world that I feel is good instead of perpetuating the bad. And like I said, we all lose control of our emotions sometimes. I know I have. You guys have given me shit for it every time I do it. But at least I try. At least I try to check myself. At least I go, okay, I know what works and I know what doesn't. And if I just want to vent and get it off my chest, well, yeah, it'll probably be entertaining because everybody loves, an online car wreck. But metaphorically, of course, not literally. But if I'm actually concerned about what works, if I'm actually concerned with minimizing disenfranchisement, which, then minimizes the likelihood of new recruits into these, I think we can all agree that a white supremacist movement is a hate movement, right? Like, I'll give them that. But, there are other things to consider, gangs, for instance. I had a conversation with a guy, he happens to be black, last week, and he actually messaged me privately, said, I hope I didn't come across as too angry. He was sort of talking about the plight of black men in America. And I said, I don't think you came across as too angry. I completely understood why you were angry. I thought it was a very productive back and forth, quite frankly. I thought it was a good exchange of ideas. And yeah, you were angry, but it didn't take away from your ability to listen. And I think that that's very important. I think that part of the mistake that, this sort of millennial malaise has committed regarding young people is any anger is seen as a bad thing. And sorry, we have anger for a reason, guys. Like, people get pissed off when something is not right. And it's not always effective anger. It's not necessarily always appropriate anger, because some people need to work some stuff out. But anger in one way or another is a sign that something is wrong. And when you're a grown up, you don't go spraying your anger all over the place just so somebody can see that you're angry. There's gaze theory again, right? You have to go, okay, what am I angry about and what am I going to do about it? And, you can be really angry at something and let you do horrible things that hurt other people. Or you can be really angry at something and say, I am going to devote myself to an alternative for people. I can't stop the bad thing, but I can give people an alternative to the bad thing. And I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. I really, based on everything I've seen, do not believe that this fuck white supremacist approach in gaming works, because what it is doing is, let's break this down, okay? There's a shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, or Quebec, Canada. I'll use my country as well. Okay, so there's a shooting and everybody's upset about it. When you go white fuck supremacists, you focus on the shooter, not the victims. You focus on connecting to that dialogue of anger between people who go out and commit these acts looking to matter and yourself. And when you go, fuck white supremacists, you are giving them, again, what they want. They are relevant. They affected you. Their message got to you. Whether you reject it or not, you heard them. And that is the whole point of these aggrieved entitlement dynamics. There are certain things certain points of identity that people feel so strongly about when they feel, in the case of a lot of mass shooters, unmanned. They think they can go to any lengths to get that back, even if it means giving up their own life. They go out in this big blaze of glory. Oh yeah, now everybody's afraid of them or hates them instead of pitying them. In a way, that's getting their masculinity back in their warped view, right? Because it's okay for men to be scary. It's okay for men to be predators. But a victim? No, men can't be. Oh, no. Like, it's kind of funny that these people who spew about toxic masculinity perpetuate it in that way. So there is another way. And I implore the people who run these awards at GDC next year, don't fall in to the politics of hate. Do not fall into performative hate. Do not fall into performative outrage. You are there to give hardworking developers who get crapped on all the time, including on online media, one night to feel really good about the accomplishments of them and their peers. It's not like Hollywood where everyone in the room is really freaking rich. Okay, a lot of these smaller developers are really getting by. I mean, God, look at the gauntlet that the God of War developers had to run through, right? A lot of these studios are barely hanging on. Give them that one freaking night. Don't copy the Oscars, pontification from the Oscar stage. This is a time to work out my politics, because every person on that Oscar stage is in some way privileged. They are at the Academy Awards. They are usually wealthy. They are far more likely to be white, male, so on, right? Don't copy that. Don't copy that. Gaming is not film with a controller. Gaming is gaming. We are our own identity. And if you can't get people to help themselves because these things are streamed or televised, do not stream or televise them. Just publish the results. But give these people that moment, because these awards matter to the success of a game. I'd never heard of the return of the Obra Dinn before this. Now I'm going to check it out because it won an award, not because it won an award because I looked it up because it won an award and it appealed to me. But if somebody hadn't actually told me that the actual people who won the awards weren't getting a lot of attention, I never would have looked it up. And so I went through and was like, oh, this game seems pretty interesting. I can't say I liked Papers, Please, but I found it really interesting. It did what it was accomplished. It did what it set out to accomplish. So I'm going to give this game a try. But if games like The Return of the Obra Dinn get drowned out by Tim Schafer doing his performative outrage every freaking year, at least there was no sock puppet on his hand this year. But if that keeps getting drowned out by these scene stealers, this isn't helping the industry. This isn't helping your colleagues that made great work. Maybe I'm on to something here. Because at the end of the day, I just see people who grandstand like this as interested far more in themselves than the industry. What a great person I am. Throw attention and accolades and money at me for reasons beyond me being a good game designer. And that really bugs me because there's a lot of people out there who are extremely skilled, who have good stories to tell, who know what they're doing and don't have these connections. And I'm really more interested in helping them get a leg up, because it should be a merit-based industry with all the direct distribution services we have. I'll leave it there. I think I made my point. This is one of those things people are going to get pissed at me, but I'm well aware of that. So, again, if you're looking for a fight, you're not going to find one here because you're looking for a fight. Get it? At least I'm being consistent, right? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.